Exposed: How one amazing first-class encounter transformed a struggling single mom's life forever. Sarah woke up before the sun, the familiar buzz of her alarm cutting through a thick veil of exhaustion. The quiet streets of the bustling Midwestern city were starkly in contrast to the chaos churning in her mind, bills overdue, deadlines approaching, and her son's needs always looming. Each morning was a balancing act, her 2 jobs at the diner and a cleaning service, and her nursing degree at community college pressing heavily on her shoulders. Yet, somewhere deep inside, her dream of becoming a nurse flickered like a stubborn flame, pushing her through the relentless fatigue. One afternoon, as she scrubbed the tiles of an upscale hotel bathroom, her thoughts were on the midterms she had yet to study for. That was when David appeared. With his sleek suit and polished shoes, he was a stark contrast to the worn-out uniform Sarah donned daily. She caught him glancing at her, curiosity evident in his gaze. "Excuse me," he said, his voice smooth yet intrigued. "Do you work here?" Sarah blinked, momentarily taken aback by the unexpected encounter. "Why yes," she stammered, straightening herself up, feeling the weight of her laborious day. They exchanged pleasantries, discussing mundane hotel amenities, and soon found themselves drifting into deeper territory. They spoke of dreams, life, and the burdens unique to single parenthood. Sarah's heart raced beneath the hard exterior she crafted daily. His genuine interest felt like a breath of fresh air, piercing through the emotional armor she wore. They shared stories over coffee, his laughter infectious, something she hadn't experienced in years. Day by day, David opened doors, connecting her with influential contacts in the healthcare sector. Hope burgeoned within her, its roots spreading wider with each conversation. But as Sarah's aspirations edged closer into view, the undercurrents of their friendship pulled her back. During one coffee break, as they discussed work-life balance, David's tone shifted. He offered suggestions, but something felt patronizing. He couldn't grasp the tangled web of responsibility she spun daily. The nagging sensation that their friendship danced precariously atop deep-seated biases weighed heavily on her conscience. Before this realization could settle, Sarah stumbled upon troubling news reports of unethical practices linked to the hospital chain where David had connections. Panic rose in the pit of her stomach as recognition crashed over her. He was tied to the very problems she had heard echoed through her community. Should she confront him, the man who had been that beacon of hope? As her mind raced, she felt the emotional pressure mounting, gratitude battling with the urge to fight for her community. Did loyalty to her mentor outshine her obligations to those who faced the fallout of the crisis? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just when she thought clarity was near, another wave of dread crashed over her. How could she balance the risks of exposing him against the fragile hope that had become her reality? As she prepared herself to confront David, Sarah's heart raced, her breathing hitching. Would the truth shatter both their lives, teetering on the very edge of an uncertain future? Her resolve was tested like never before, the haunting question ringing in her mind: could their bond withstand the weight of this revelation? The following morning, Sarah remained restless, sleep evading her as thoughts of David and the hospital scandals roamed her mind like persistent shadows. She sat on the edge of her unmade bed, staring at the wall, trying to formulate her next move. The weight of her responsibilities pressed against her, every second felt precious yet agonizing. Attending her classes at community college felt like stepping into a different world. Surrounded by fellow students eager to absorb knowledge, Sarah battled to focus. Each lecture on anatomy and patient care clashed with the urgent memories of her conversation with David. The stark juxtaposition of her aspiration to help patients and the murky ethics tied to the professional world around her deepened her turmoil. Her nursing lab was particularly challenging that day. Engaging in practical simulations, she couldn't help but see the faces of her son and David flash before her, intertwined with her dreams and the harsh realities of healthcare. Would she compromise her integrity for connections that could potentially lead her to success? Could she even help others if she found herself entangled in the wrong web? After class, Sarah sat alone in the campus cafeteria, her lunch untouched as her mind wrestled with conflict. As she gazed out the window, the crisp autumn air outside felt liberating compared to the suffocating decisions clamping down on her. She weighed her options: keep silent to maintain a semblance of peace, or confront David and risk losing the beacon he had become. Just then, one of her classmates, Maya, a fellow nursing student, approached her table. Maya had always been perceptive, recognizing the weight of stress even through Sarah's practiced smile. "You've been quiet lately. Everything all right?" When Sarah hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal, she decided to share. "I met someone who's helping me, connecting me to opportunities. But now, I'm torn. He's linked to some unethical practices in the hospital chain where he works, and I don't know if I should confront him." Maya leaned in closer, her brow furrowed with concern. "You have to consider your future, Sarah. But what about the patients who might be affected by those practices?" The question struck a chord. In that moment, Sarah began to see through the fog of doubt and fear. The crux was not merely about David's influence or their friendship, it was about standing up for her values and ensuring she could be the nurse her patients needed. Determined, Sarah made a decision. She couldn't let gratitude overshadow her ethical compass. She would confront David, but she would do it with intention. She would seek the truth, not just for herself, but for the community she hoped to serve one day. As she walked back to her car after class, adrenaline surged within her. She felt empowered, ready to approach David not just as a mentor, but as a peer committed to integrity. As apprehensive thoughts still churned in her mind, she made a silent vow to confront the situation head-on. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she texted David to meet. Whatever would come, Sarah braced herself for the challenge, knowing it would define not only her relationship with him but also her future as a nurse. The moment had arrived, and her heart thrummed in anticipation as she awaited his response. Would she finally unravel the truth, or would she be left grappling with secrets that could jeopardize her ambitions? The ding of a notification pierced the silence of Sarah's phone, breaking her concentration. It was David's response, short and to the point, "Sure. Let us meet at the cafe by the hospital." Her stomach knotted as she drove, the familiar route blurred by rising tension. The cafe loomed ahead, both a sanctuary and an interrogation room. She could feel the world closing in, the weight of her decision growing heavier with each passing moment. As she parked, reality weighed on her. This wasn't just a conversation, it was an undeniable turning point in her life. Inside the cafe, the scent of fresh coffee mixed with the chatter of early evening patrons. Sarah spotted David at a corner table, his confident posture beckoning reassurance she desperately sought. As she approached, his warm smile flashed, a contrast to the icy storm brewing inside her. "Hey, Sarah. Great to see you. What's on your mind?" he asked, his tone casual, but his gaze pierced through her facade. She paused, searching for the right words as the room dimmed, heart racing as she sensed the truth masked behind polite conversation. "David," she began, voice steadier than she felt. "There's something I need to talk about. It's about the practices at the hospital, your involvement." His expression shifted, intrigue mixed with apprehension. "What do you mean?" "Look," she said, the urgency of her voice growing. "I know you're well connected, and I appreciate what you've done for me. But I can't ignore the ethical implications of your connections. Lives are at stake. We have to consider what's happening behind the scenes." Silence hung heavy between them, and Sarah's heart thudded like a drum. This was no longer an abstract conversation, it was a confrontation that felt monumental. She willed herself not to back down. David's brow furrowed slightly. I see. You've been doing your homework. But this is complicated, Sarah. The healthcare system isn't black and white. Things are often gray. Her pulse quickened. Complicated or not, people are getting hurt. We need to do what's right, even if it puts our careers at risk. I won't compromise my integrity for potential opportunities. A flicker of respect crossed his face, but it was quickly replaced by a steely resolve. You really think you can change things? This is how the industry operates. You can't save everyone. Darkness crept into Sarah's mind as she absorbed his words, question marks bubbling up within her. Did he truly believe that? She felt the need to defend her dreams, to show him the power of genuine change. Maybe I can't save everyone, but I can begin by refusing to be part of the problem, David. If I'm going to be a nurse, I need to be one who stands for something. The intensity hung thick in the air, both emboldening and terrifying. It struck her then that this confrontation wasn't just about David, it was about her becoming the nurse she aspired to be, someone who champions ethical practice, regardless of the risks. David leaned back, arms crossed, studying her. So what do you plan to do, Sarah? This courage, it's admirable, but it's dangerous. Right then, a surge of determination washed over her. She knew this wouldn't be the last conversation, nor a single brave act. It was the beginning of her commitment to herself, to her moral compass. I'll find a way to speak up, she said firmly. I can't stay silent and look away. I'll figure it out, but it starts here. As the words left her lips, Sarah felt the weight lift, a surge of latent power awakening within her, a promise to follow through, to seek the truth, no matter the cost. An unwavering resolve filled her every fiber. Good luck with that, David replied, a hint of challenge lacing his voice. But I hope you know what you're getting yourself into. She offered a tight smile, half grateful, half wary. As she stepped back from the table, a rush of apprehension and purpose coursed through her. Would she have the strength to navigate the storm she had just ignited? Sarah walked out into the cool evening air, her mind racing with unanswered questions and the weight of her resolve. As she stood beneath the vast night sky, the excitement of her newfound commitment was tinged with foreboding. The battle between her integrity and the murky shadows of healthcare was just beginning, and she sensed that her next steps would demand all the courage she could muster. With every heartbeat, she realized that the true test lay ahead. What would she uncover as she pushed further into the depths of the hospital's operations? What allies or adversaries awaited her in the relentless pursuit of truth? The morning sun spilled through Sarah's window, coaxing her awake with a promise of clarity. She had tossed and turned all night, leaving her mind a whirlpool of doubts and possibilities. As she lay in bed, the weight of her previous conversation with David settled over her like a shroud, reminding her of the daunting path ahead. With a deep breath, she swung her legs over the side of the bed, and the cold floor jolted her into action. Today was about defining her next move, a chance to rebuild her narrative from a passive participant to an active changemaker. She couldn't ignore the obstacles ahead, yet neither could she allow fear to stifle her ambition. As she applied her makeup, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Her eyes were stormy with uncertainty, yet there was a flicker of resolve igniting within them, a spark she couldn't ignore. The journey to uncover the truth would not only demand her physical presence but also a steadfast conviction in her abilities. Arriving at the hospital, Sarah navigated bustling corridors filled with nurses and patients. The clinical smells and murmur of conversations felt oddly comforting, yet anxiety tightened her chest. Today, however, she wouldn't shy away from confrontation. Today, she would confront Dr. Hargrove, the head of the nursing department, the person who held significant influence over policy and practice. "Let us get this done," Sarah muttered under her breath as she steeled herself for the inevitable challenge. Each step toward Dr. Hargrove's office marked a deepening commitment to her resolve, underscoring her determination to advocate for ethical nursing practices. Finding him in his office, seated with an air of authority, she felt the familiar flutter of trepidation. Dr. Hargrove looked up, eyebrows raised in curiosity. "What can I do for you, Sarah?" His tone suggested he already regarded her as a subordinate. Taking a deep breath, she squared her shoulders. "I'd like to discuss the current protocols surrounding patient advocacy and get your insights on the ethical practices applied here at the hospital." His demeanor shifted, curiosity morphed into defensiveness. "You understand this is a busy department, right? What exactly are you getting at?" She pressed on, fighting the urge to retreat. "I've seen concerns and inconsistencies in how patient care is prioritized. I believe we have a responsibility to address these issues before they escalate. Lives depend on us doing what is right." Dr. Hargrove's cool gaze narrowed. "You think you're equipped to challenge decades of established practice? You're still learning, Sarah. Your place is to learn, not to criticize." A bolt of electricity coursed through her, igniting her passion. "Learning begins with asking questions, doesn't it? I'm dedicated to understanding how we can improve our practices. Just because we've always done something a certain way doesn't mean it's effective." He leaned back, assessing her with a newfound respect that felt both encouraging and challenging. "You're certainly ambitious. Just remember, ambition without experience can lead to mistakes." "I welcome mistakes, Dr. Hargrove, but only if they bring me closer to understanding the truth. I can't be complicit in a system that prioritizes profit over patients." "I refuse to accept that," she countered, each word infused with urgency. As she spoke, a realization crystallized within her: she wasn't just an aspiring nurse, she was a force for change. Her thoughts locked onto a broader vision for healthcare, one not shackled by tradition but liberated by accountability. "Your dedication is commendable, but let us not forget there are forces in play you aren't yet aware of," he replied, a note of warning lacing his words. "I'm willing to confront those forces," she replied, her heart racing in response to a latent confidence igniting within. "I believe change is possible, and I will seek it." Suddenly, she felt a ripple of doubt lingering in the air, a silent acknowledgement of the challenges she faced. Would the hospital truly allow someone like her, new, passionate, and unyielding, to challenge the status quo? As she left Dr. Hargrove's office, the uncertainty gnawed at her, but strength wrapped around her like a cloak. She had awakened a part of herself she hadn't known existed, a fierce advocate determined to stand for principle. Yet as she walked away, questions emerged, like shadows looming ahead. Who would join her in this attempt to reshape healthcare, and at what cost? Could her resolve withstand the impending turbulence? The answers remained elusive, yet one truth loomed large: change would demand sacrifice. What obstacles would she encounter as she pushed onward? Would she be ready for the battles awaiting her in this new chapter? Sarah's day was far from over as she exited Dr. Hargrove's office. It merely marked the beginning of a tumultuous journey. Taking a moment in the bustling hallway, she leaned against a wall, fighting the urge to let exhaustion seep in. The walls of the hospital echoed with laughter, stress, and the relentless commitment of caregivers. Behind all the noise, her voice had risen above in a singular moment of clarity, yet now, uncertainty threatened to drown her resolve. She pulled out her phone, her fingers hovering over the contacts. The name David blinked back at her, an unsettling reminder of their last conversation. She considered calling him for support, guidance, or perhaps just a voice of reassurance, but something stopped her. She needed to learn to rely on her own intuition and voice first. David would be there when she truly needed him, but this moment was about her. She chose instead to seek out a colleague, Claire, someone who seemed to straddle the worlds of ambition and caregiving with ease. Claire was known for her ability to interface with upper management while remaining compassionately rooted in patient care. As Sarah approached her, sitting briefly in the break room surrounded by a few other staff members, she felt a pulse of nerves. "Mind if I have a word, Claire?" Sarah asked, trying to project the conviction she had just exhibited in front of Dr. Hargrove. Sure, what's up? You look like you've been through the ringer, Claire replied, genuine concern dancing in her eyes. I just had a conversation with Dr. Hargrove about patient advocacy. I'm trying to stir the pot a bit regarding our practices, she admitted, her words tumbling out as they often did in moments of urgency. Claire leaned in, intrigued. Are you sure you want to do that? You know how he feels about questioning established methods. It can get dangerous. I know, but someone has to. We can't stand by and let patients slip through the cracks because of profit-driven decisions. I'm ready to confront those forces he warned me about, Sarah responded, her voice firm yet trembling with the weight of her conviction. Claire studied her, her expression shifting with understanding. It takes guts to go against the grain. But just know, you might need allies in this. A single voice can be drowned out easily in this kind of environment. I think I could rally support, Sarah said, the idea forming powerfully in her mind. I'll start by talking to the nurses in the oncology wing. There are plenty who feel the same way. Maybe if we all rally behind the effort. Claire chuckled lightly, shaking her head. You're already thinking strategically. But be prepared. People may not respond warmly at first. It's not just about speaking out, it's about knowing how to navigate the culture here. As the gravity of Claire's words settled in, Sarah felt flickers of doubt once again. What if she couldn't persuade her colleagues? Or worse, what if they turned on her? I'll be careful, she reassured herself as much as Claire. The reality, however, was daunting. Would she be ready for the unwillingness to change, the apathy that might meet her? Don't lose that fire, Claire added, her tone now more serious. Change takes time, and it requires layers of conversation. Keep your eyes open, and be smart about your next moves. As she left the break room, an idea began to crystallize. She would need more than conversation, she would need a plan. If she wanted to steer this ship, she needed to chart her course carefully while also rallying those around her. Sarah paused by the window, the sunlight streaming in like the first rays of dawn. The fears loomed but felt less insurmountable now. If she gathered a coalition, they might just have the strength to challenge the status quo. But to do this effectively, she would need to craft a strategy, define her allies, understand the opposition, and articulate a compelling vision for change. Yet, lurking beneath the surface was a nagging tension. What if her efforts backfired? Would she wind up isolated, targeted for speaking out? The stakes were rising, and with every step forward, the consequences seemed to multiply. The call for action echoed within her like a drumbeat. She was being compelled toward a conflict that could redefine her existence as a nurse and an advocate. And with this determination began her restless quest to not only unearth the hidden truths of healthcare but to confront the reality around her. Was she ready to pay the price for her ambitions? Each challenge she faced from here on out would be a step further into the arena of change. As she and Claire parted ways, Sarah felt the weight of her decision deepening. Change lay ahead, but what would she truly sacrifice to achieve it? The answers lingered like shadows, impossible to predict but ever present in her thoughts. Tomorrow would bring clarity as she began to scale her ambitions into action. But tonight, she had to prepare for the ripples ahead. Would she embrace her potential to forge alliances, or would her fear of backlash pull her back into silence? With the morning light seeping through the unforgiving fluorescent bulbs overhead, Sarah found herself standing in front of the oncology wing's nursing station. Her heart raced, ignited with a blend of anticipation and doubt. The weight of her decision to challenge the status quo pulled at her sleeves like the invisible hands of doubt, but she had already committed to change. "Good morning, everyone," she greeted the gathered nurses, trying to steady her voice. It came out stronger than she expected. The familiar faces of her colleagues looked back at her, some still busy with their duties, others pausing to give her their attention. "Could I have a moment of your time?" The words felt sharp and bold against the gentle hum of the station. They reluctantly nodded, and Sarah took a step closer, shifting her weight nervously. "I want to talk about something that's been on my mind. It's about our patients and the systematic issues we face in care. Sarah explained her discussions with Dr. Hargrove, the obstacles posed by profit-driven models, and the urgency for a shift in their practices. As she spoke, she noted the shifting expressions among her colleagues, some engaged, others wary, and a few outright skeptical. "Do you really think we can change anything?" One nurse, Lisa, asked skeptically. "It's a tall order. We're just nurses. This is how it's been for a long time." Her heart sank momentarily at the indifference marking Lisa's tone. "But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Our voices matter, especially now. Patients are relying on us." Sarah felt the warmth of truth rising within her. What if we gathered our experiences and presented a unified front? If we articulate our voices collectively, change becomes far more accessible, doesn't it? An awkward silence stretched across the room. Eyes darted, and Sarah felt her confidence teetering. "Look, I get it," Claire piped up from the back, lending her support. "It's scary to challenge what feels like a wall. But if we don't voice our concerns, what message are we sending to our patients?" The tide shifted slightly, but doubt still hung like fog. What if they push back? What if we lose our jobs? Another voice chimed in. Determination coursed through Sarah, mingling with a hint of fear. "Then we will speak our truth, knowing we did it for those we care for. Isn't that what this profession stands for? To advocate for those who need us the most?" Suddenly, a flicker of acknowledgement ran through the group. The collective burden of voicelessness began to swell into a moment of strength. "I can help organize us," Claire said, channeling reversal into potential. "We should brainstorm and come up with a proposal." "Are we really considering this?" Lisa questioned, glancing at her colleagues. "Why not?" Sarah took a step forward, breathing deeply. "We can no longer be passive. If Dr. Hargrove thinks we'll accept things as they are, he's mistaken. We're here to provide the best care, and it starts with us." The atmosphere gradually shifted as reluctant nods transformed into budding conversations. With every new moment, Sarah felt her confidence solidifying. If they could confront their fears and come together, they could make ripples strong enough to cause real waves. Yet, even as newfound optimism enveloped her, a corner of her mind harbored the reality of backlash. There was a chilling reminder that not everyone in the hierarchy would welcome such bold moves. As discussions swelled around her, she wrestled with a recurring question: would her newfound coalition withstand the scrutiny of those threatened by change? Later that evening, Sarah sat alone in her small apartment, the clutter from her hectic life swirling around her. She jotted notes and strategies, trying to foresee potential conflicts, arguments, and the resistance that could await them. Each scenario felt like shadows lurking just beyond her reach, yet not all of them were unwelcome. Some glimmered with hope, potential allies waiting just over the horizon. But as she began to connect the dots, realization dawned: to be an effective advocate, she would have to evolve not only in her ability to lead but in embracing the vulnerability that came with challenge. The stakes were higher than she had ever anticipated, and the weight settled heavier on her chest. Was she ready to face those among her own ranks who might not support their cause? Would she remain unyielding in her conviction even as dissent knocked at her door? Tomorrow would bring further discussions, possibly defining moments in her journey, yet the truth lay within: could she lead with strength and sincerity even as fear prickled the edges? As the sun dipped below the horizon, she caught her reflection in the window, invigorated yet uncertain. Determined to step into her power, she steadily penned a message to Claire, outlining their next move. The moment for action was drawing near, but before then, she needed to mentally brace herself for the confrontation ahead. A tremor of excitement coursed through her, punctuated with anxiety. Would she soon discover the strength to face those who stood against her ideals? Or would the impending battle lay bare the fissures within her mission? The next morning arrived with a chill that seeped through Sarah's bones, confronting her with the reality of what lay ahead. As she prepared for work, each article of clothing felt heavy, a physical reminder of the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Today was not just another day, it was the day she and her colleagues would present their proposal to Dr. Hargrove, the moment when they would either clasp the hope of reform or feel the crush of their fears. The oncology wing buzzed with activity as Sarah entered, but her focus narrowed to the collective tension palpable among the nurses gathered near the break room. Conversations buzzed in low tones, glancing eyes revealing a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. She felt their uncertainty mirroring her own. Despite the previous night's discussions, doubt clung stubbornly like mist. "Are we ready for this?" Claire asked, her voice barely above a whisper as they huddled together for a final strategy session. Sarah's heart thudded. She hadn't realized how deeply she was invested in others' readiness until that moment. "We have to be," she replied, her voice stronger than she felt. "Our patients are counting on us to advocate for the care they deserve." Lisa shifted uncomfortably, her face taut with worry. "What if we meet resistance? What if Hargrove dismisses us outright?" "We can't control his response, but we can control our message," Sarah insisted, her internal fire igniting. "Let us focus on what we're presenting: the data, our experiences, the voices of our patients. We owe it to them to fight for change." She sensed her words were sparking something within her colleagues. A flicker of resolve illuminated their features. Perhaps they could do this. As they approached the conference room, Sarah noted the polished table and stern demeanor of Dr. Hargrove, who sat with a notepad poised. A sharp tension filled the air, thick with unspoken words and expectations. The moment swallowed her whole, and yet, she felt an unsettling shift within, a tingling realization that she had to start framing the conversation. "Good morning, Dr. Hargrove," she began, aware of how desperately her heart raced against her ribcage. "Morning," he replied, barely meeting her gaze. "What's this about?" With every ounce of conviction, Sarah introduced their proposal, outlining the pervasive systemic issues they faced, paired with brief anecdotes that humanized their statistics. As she spoke, she felt the challenge rise within her. She was standing face to face with a higher power, defending both herself and her team. Each sentence echoed louder than the last, cementing her belief in the message. Hargrove leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing in critical appraisal. "You believe that nursing staff should be dictating care models based on anecdotal evidence? That's not how things work here." "Actually, that's exactly how they should work," Claire interjected, her voice gaining strength. "We're the ones at the bedside. Our insights come directly from the patients we serve. This isn't just a proposal, it's a call to realign our values toward humane care." An awkward silence lingered, and Sarah felt the weight of fear strangle her voice for a fleeting moment. But rather than retreat, she leaned into the tension. "We are not just nurses. We're advocates. And every day, we see how the current model fails our patients. It's not just about the bottom line, it's about lives." Dr. Hargrove's expression soured, a wall rising between them. "Are you suggesting I ignore the fiscal realities of the hospital? Do you have any understanding of how budgets work?" Sarah's pulse quickened, a wave of indignation sparking her resolve. "What I'm suggesting is that if we continue to prioritize profit over patient care, we will lose the very essence of why we became nurses. It's unsustainable." For a moment, it felt as if the room itself held its breath, awaiting Hargrove's response. But instead of conceding, he narrowed his eyes even further, pushing back against the tide of vulnerability Sarah had unleashed. With every defiant question he posed, she felt the contours of her mission being tested as the debate became intensely personal. As they continued to grapple with each point, Sarah realized it was not just about winning the argument but also about gaining insight into who she was becoming: an advocate who would not back down, even when faced with fierce opposition. Yet a chilling thought lurked in the back of her mind: what if Hargrove wasn't the greatest challenge she faced? What if the real struggle lay within her to maintain her conviction when doubts settled in like unwelcome shadows? As they concluded their discussion, Sarah's heart pounded with uncertainty yet was underscored by an undeniable strength. She realized that the outcomes of today's confrontation could ripple far beyond the moment. Would she command the respect and change she sought, or would this moment shatter her ambitions before they fully formed? The tension hung thick as they left the conference room, swirling with potential, a blend of hope and fear as they faced what lay ahead. What would Hargrove's final verdict mean for their efforts, and how would the judgment shape Sarah's journey moving forward? As Sarah and her colleagues exited the conference room, the atmosphere shifted, a charged silence enveloping them. Each nurse grasped her emotions tightly, their collective exhalation blending into an unspoken vow: they would either rise together or fall apart in the wake of uncertainty. Sarah's mind raced not only with the echoes of the conversation she just navigated but with the realization of what awaited her next. Returning to their stations, the oncology wing buzzed with life around her, but inside, Sarah felt like a participant in a play whose next act had been unceremoniously yanked from her hands. Duty called her back, but her heart still danced on the precipice of fear and hope, torn between the momentary wins of the meeting and the looming reality of its implications. "Sarah, you seemed fearless in there," Claire remarked, catching up to her at the nurse's station, a hint of admiration evident in her voice. "Fearless?" Sarah repeated, searching for the gravity of that word. "I felt every ounce of fear. I had to push through it." "That's not nothing," Claire pressed. "It was inspiring. You stood up to him." "I just spoke what needed to be said. It doesn't mean anything unless it leads to change." Sarah's tone was sharper than she intended, words laced with the pressure mounting inside her, pressure she feared might erupt if Hargrove didn't validate their fight. As the hours passed, the day's activities filled her time, but her mind kept straying back to the incessant replay of her confrontation with Dr. Hargrove. She found herself questioning every argument, each phrase, wondering if she could have done better or if she had truly made a difference. When a patient's family approached her with questions about their loved one's treatment, she realized her self-doubt was overshadowing her advocacy. "Let me take a look at her chart," she said, grounding herself in the moment. The rhythmic sounds of the machines and muted conversations from nearby rooms anchored her thoughts. As she reviewed the information, she steadied her breathing, and an energy sparked within her. "Everything looks good here. I know this is a difficult time, but trust the team, we're doing everything for her comfort," she reassured them, her voice sure and steady. After helping the family, she felt a burst of clarity. The exchange served as a reminder of why she was fighting so hard for change. It was those patients, not budgets or administrative obstacles, who were at the heart of it all. Each interaction deepened her resolve. Later that afternoon, Dr. Hargrove finally summoned them back to the conference room. Anxiety coiled tightly in her chest as she and her colleagues walked back, the air thick with anticipation. Whatever verdict Hargrove had reached felt monumental, a defining moment that could reshape not just their proposal's fate, but their identities as nurses, advocates, and individuals. As they entered, the room felt different, drained of the earlier tension but charged with a different energy. Hargrove sat waiting, his fingers steepled, an inscrutable expression on his face. "You've made a compelling argument," he began slowly, and Sarah felt a flutter of hope. But just as quickly, the clarity turned into condensation, thickening her throat. "But," he continued, "there are many layers we must explore further. I'm not as convinced as you about this being a feasible model." The word stung, igniting a fire she hadn't fully acknowledged before. A voice in her head whispered that this was not an endpoint but a new challenge, one that would demand even more of her. "Then let us explore together, Dr. Hargrove," she proposed, her tone measured but steely. "If we don't start somewhere, we'll only remain stagnant, and our patients will continue to suffer." With that one statement, Sarah recognized a shift not just in her words but her entire perception. Challenging authority was daunting, yet she felt a surge of empowerment channeling her anxiety into something constructive. This was her moment to push back, not out of defiance but from a place of dedication. As they dove into a dialogue punctuated by passionate exchanges, hints of compromise emerged from the walls erected by numbers and protocols. Each minute spent exchanging ideas fueled her determination to grow not only as an advocate but as a leader, a role she hadn't envisioned for herself until these moments of conflict summoned it forth. Yet as they wrapped up, a gnawing seed of tension sprouted within her, whispering the question: could she keep this momentum alive, or would she revert to her doubts in the face of continued resistance? The confrontation had sparked a resolve within Sarah, but it also illuminated the shadows she would need to confront to hold on to her newfound strength. What would happen if she challenged herself to step out of the shadows, not just with Hargrove, but within her own life? Would she dare to embrace the vulnerability that came with true leadership? The next day dawned with a sense of urgency so palpable it was as if the air itself crackled with purpose. Sarah awoke early, the remnants of yesterday's confrontation still clinging to her thoughts, propelling her to seek clarity. Every glance at the mirror revealed the face of someone who had cracked a window into her deeper self, a self she was now compelled to nurture and explore. She arrived at the hospital, her heart racing, the steady rhythm of determination thrumming beneath her skin. Today, she decided, would be about building on the momentum she had initiated. While the conversations with Dr. Hargrove had started to unravel new possibilities, she understood that these conversations needed to transform into actionable goals. The realization weighed heavily yet also imbued her with excitement and anxiety, a duality that hung in the air like the soft morning light streaming through the window. Sarah made her first stop at the nurse's station, where Claire was already busy organizing charts. "Hey, do you have a moment?" Sarah asked, her voice even as she fought the nerves threatening to surface. Claire turned, meeting her gaze with curiosity, and nodded. Sarah breathed deeply. "I've been thinking about our proposal. I know Dr. Hargrove wants more data, more structure, and maybe we can gather some additional insights." "Like what?" Claire asked, tilting her head slightly, with the openness that always made brainstorming feel safe. "What if we approached some of the families to gather their experiences? Their stories could illustrate our points far better than numbers alone. If we can show him the human side of our model, it might make a difference." The idea crystallized as she spoke, her previous hesitations shedding like old skin. Claire's eyes lit up, and Sarah watched as something shifted in her colleague, too. That could really work. "We need to show Hargrove that this is more than just a spreadsheet, it's about the patients, their lives, and how we can improve their care." Encouraged, Sarah quickly jotted down a plan of action for gathering testimonials and stories. She had transformed her self-doubt into a focused strategy. Each step towards this goal felt like reclaiming a power she had unknowingly ceded before. With newfound determination, Sarah spent the morning connecting with families, heart-to-heart conversations unfolding in hospital rooms. She listened deeply, capturing their narratives with empathy, each account revealing the profound need for the changes they sought. As she spoke with a mother whose child was battling cancer, Sarah felt the palpable weight of vulnerability enveloping them both, an intimacy forged through shared emotional landscapes. By lunchtime, Sarah had amassed a collection of voices that would bolster their cause. She felt invigorated, her heart brimming with purpose. Yet, she was acutely aware of the emotional toll these stories played on her and others. Chipping away at her resolve were lingering questions: had she truly unlocked the door to advocacy, or was she still peering through the keyhole, too afraid to step fully inside? Later in the afternoon, as Sarah prepared her findings to present back to Claire and the team, she sensed the shadows creep back in. What if Hargrove dismissed their efforts? What if this wasn't enough? Her mind swirled in doubt, a testament to the vulnerability she had yet to fully embrace. That evening, as she gathered her materials, the quiet hum of the oncology wing surrounded her, reminding her of the stakes involved. This journey was personal. It wasn't just her growth but that of every patient and family pinned on these projections. As she made her way to the conference room once again, the echo of her heart thrummed louder than ever. Would she falter in front of Hargrove again or confront the tides of skepticism head-on, not merely as a nurse but as a captain steering the ship through stormy seas? It was time for Sarah to transform her fear into an anchor for stability, to finally guide the course of her professional life not only for herself but for every life that depended on her unwavering commitment. As she stood on the threshold of the room, prepared to present the narrative power of those they served, she realized this was not just advocacy, it was a passionate declaration of her identity and purpose. But as she took a deep breath, ready to face what was next, a thought flickered in her mind: how would she balance this newfound strength with the emotional weight it brought? That challenge awaited her now as the moment of truth loomed ahead. The tension in the conference room was palpable as Sarah faced Dr. Hargrove once more, a sense of determination solidifying within her. She had gathered first-hand accounts that embodied the struggles and victories of her patients, a testament to their plight, and she knew they needed to be heard. Today, she would present not just data but human experiences encapsulated in narratives that spoke volumes about the need for reform. "Thank you for meeting with us again, Dr. Hargrove," she began, her voice steady despite the butterflies swirling in her stomach. Claire stood beside her, a supportive presence that bolstered Sarah's resolve. "Today, we aim to share stories from the patients and families we interviewed, narratives that highlight the human impact of our care practices." Hargrove's brow furrowed slightly, and Sarah could sense his skepticism, but she pressed on. "These testimonials will underscore the urgency for change. We believe that by connecting compassionate care with systematic improvements, we can enhance patient outcomes and satisfaction." As she unfolded the gathered narratives, each story painted a vivid picture of emotional battles fought alongside physical ones, of families despairing over delays that could have been mitigated through more attentive policies. Sarah's heart quickened, her purpose surging forth like a wave crashing on shore. Each account she recounted felt like an anchor for her argument, grounding her advocacy in undeniable reality. One story in particular struck her. It was of a father whose son had faced a long battle with leukemia, and he spoke about how the lack of cohesive communication between departments had made a dire situation worse. "They felt lost amid the system, and we owe it to our patients to ensure no one else has to fight that battle alone." She could see Hargrove listening intently, a flicker of interest breaking through his earlier skepticism. The narrative transcended mere words, it brought to life the humanity behind the statistics. "We can navigate the intricate web of our practices while putting the patient at the center of our focus. If we manage to shift our practices from profit-driven paradigms to empathetic care, we can become pioneers of change." With each story, she found an unexpected wellspring of courage within herself. She felt transformed, not just into the nurse she aspired to be, but into an advocate, a beacon for her patients' voices and needs. Her face flushed with conviction, and with renewed fervor, she concluded, "These aren't just stories, they're calls to action. Together, let us reshape our approach to healthcare. We have the power to be the difference makers." The silence that followed was thick with contemplation, broken only by Hargrove's slowly nodding head. "Your passion is evident, Sarah. These stories certainly add weight to your arguments," he conceded, acknowledging the turn of tides. "However, we will need to establish a more concrete framework to advocate for these changes." "Absolutely," Claire jumped in, her confidence peaking. "We can compile data to support these claims and create an actionable plan. We can show you how implementing a more holistic approach to patient care not only improves lives but may also correlate to better outcomes and perhaps even cost efficiencies in the long run." "Interesting approach," Hargrove replied, his tone shifting from defensive to contemplative. "I never considered weaving qualitative data with our quantitative metrics as an effective storytelling strategy. Perhaps there's room for conversation here." As they began laying the groundwork for actionable reforms, Sarah felt a rush of exhilaration. This was tangible progress. For the first time, she sensed her voice mattered, and that she was indeed capable of creating ripples. By the time they finished, the previously unyielding Hargrove was discussing next steps, inviting them to present their findings at the next board meeting. As they left the room, Sarah felt a palpable weight lift. They were no longer fighting alone but had started to forge an alliance for change. In the weeks that followed, Sarah's world transformed. Energized by her concrete progress and the support of her colleagues, she led a series of workshops, using the narratives to foster empowerment among the staff. Every triumph shared brought her community closer together. Their collective voice climbed higher, echoing throughout the halls of the hospital. Each day reinforced her belief that her path to becoming a nurse would not be defined solely by academic success but by the courage to challenge the status quo and innovate for the sake of her patients. The shadows of doubt that once clung so closely began to dissipate, replaced by an unmistakable light of clarity and purpose. Sarah approached her mentors and collaborated with her peers to begin drafting a proposal based on their findings, and she found her heart swelling with pride as she watched her colleagues rally around her in unity, each writer adding their personal touch to the document. Together, they had unearthed strength from vulnerability, transforming their fears into compassionate action. On the day they presented their comprehensive plan to the board, Sarah stood before them, a confident leader advocating for change. An echo of her own doubts lingered, but she had come to embrace them. Uncertainty did not equate to failure, rather, it was a necessary foundation for growth. Her transformation marked the path towards a sustainable and ethical healthcare practice, and she stood proudly as an embodiment of those values, proving to herself and others that resilience and advocacy could bridge the gap between aspiration and reality. As the applause rang out in the conference room, Sarah realized she had achieved not just a milestone but a crucial turning point in her dreams. She had transitioned from a struggling single mom to an empowered advocate championing the connections between healthcare and empathy. Her journey had come full circle, an extraordinary evolution defining her not only as a nurse but as a fervent catalyst for change. The light in her eyes flickered brightly as she embraced the endless possibility ahead. This was only the beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.